Thank you. Mr. Vasquez, in today's economic time, we see development fees always on the rise. Please explain why this is important to promote county growth.
Well, I don't know that development fees are always important, but there is a certain cost that goes along with the development. The impact to your streets, to your local government, to your fire and police. So the new people should pay a fair share. That doesn't mean they have to pay for what we already have here, and that's the struggle we have. How much is enough and how much is too much? Always there are people looking to, well, what I would say generate new revenue, but essentially what government does is collect taxes. We don't create revenue, we collect taxes, money from you, from development, from people who want to do business in Solano County. So there's a fine balance as to how much someone should pay in order to do business in Solano County.
Thank you. Mr. Pippo, in today's economic time, we see development fees always on the rise. Please explain why this is important to promote county growth.
It may be important to promote county growth, especially county government growth, but it isn't important to promote jobs if that's what you're looking for, and I think that's what I'm looking for. I'm not concerned about county growth. I think county government is too big already. I think you have to realize that I've noticed that there was a penalty given to a property owner in Rio Vista last Tuesday at the board meeting of $17,000 because he built a building without a permit. And I think you'll find that in the ag areas a lot, because at our Farm Bureau Board of Directors meeting, a farmer came in and said he wanted to build a building that he wanted to house his equipment in, and his fees for the county was $17,000 for a barn. And he thought that was exorbitant. And I looked into fees, and I got a whole binder full of fees, and I find a lot of them to be way out of line. And those fees and the taxes were how the county built up that $60 million reserve over those good years. There was a lot of building going on, a lot of permits, a lot of fees, a lot of development fees. But let's take a case in point that I researched. I dug 2 wells on my ranch in the past 3 years. My fee that the well driller paid and passed on to me was $152, which has been raised as of May of this year to $187. And I logged, both with Eaton Drilling Company and myself, how many hours of county time was spent for that $460. The well driller logged that he went to the county office, and in 10 minutes he filled out the form for the fees. They drilled the well. The inspector came out and asked Mr. Eaton, how deep is the well? What's it being used for? He said he didn't know. The inspector left, spent no more than 45 minutes on that $500 fee that I paid twice. I don't want to dig another well with those kind of exorbitant fees.
Thank you, Mr. Pippo. Mr. Vasquez, will you support a county ordinance that would, Mr. Pippo, would you support a county ordinance that would control the number of fighting roosters and go after who fights roosters in our county?
I think we have one.
Well, you know, I know of an incident out in Elmira in Mr. Regan's district where there are some very upset citizens in the 5th district because there's 500 roosters, upwards of 500 roosters, tied up by a leg tether to these little hutches. And I asked the question, in this hot weather, who goes out there and waters individually? You can't they're not free-range fighting roosters. Who waters those roosters? And they said, well, the property owner needs to water them. I'll be willing to bet you that the Humane Society needs to go out onto Clark Road and see why Mr. Regan, who's in the back of the room, and Mr. Vasquez and Mr. Sperring, you know, the 3-2 majority, hasn't done anything about the abuse of animals on Clark Road, because I know it exists, and I know that they were threatened with lawsuits if they did it. Come on, show some guts and be humane to animals. You don't tether a rooster to a hutch and depend on the property owner to water 300 or 500 roosters. They should be banned and outlawed. Those and fighting dogs, all that kind of crap needs to go away. Take a tough stance. If you get sued, hey, you farm out all your lawsuits to private attorneys anyway. Bite the bullet and outlaw them.
We ask in the beginning to hold the applause, please. Mr. Vasquez, will you support a county ordinance that would control the number of fighting roosters and go after those who fight roosters in our county?
We do have an ordinance in place, and we do go after people who are raising fighting cocks. And, that sometimes it's a team approach. You have the humane officer going out there, you have the sheriff going along with them. And I know of a number of cases where we've gone out and destroyed the animals right on site. So those are in place. If there's an issue of fighting cocks out on Clark Road, we're hoping that somebody will call us and let us know, and we'll go out there and take care of it.
Thank you. Mr. Vasquez, taxpayer funding for the Solano Transportation Authority is $25 million annually. Would you favor abolishing the Solano Transportation Authority?
No, I wouldn't. The Transportation Authority's worked really well. It's a collaborative effort where they've been able to pool resources, and we've been able to get projects in place. And because we do it on a countywide basis, it has worked out really well for everyone, every city and the county. Projects come forward, they can be expedited through the STA's process, get them in place, get them shovel ready. In fact, the work that was done on 80 outside of Fairfield was an example. It was the first one to get that federal money because it was ready to go. Small agencies, small cities like Rio Vista, Dixon, and Suisun don't have the staff to do it. So with STA, we're able to, again, pool resources, take that money and put projects on a timely basis in place to get them done.
Thank you. Mr. Pippo, taxpayer funding for the Solano Transportation Authority is $25 million annually. Would you favor abolishing the Solano Transportation Authority?
You know, I know of two people that went to work for the Transportation Authority. One of them left his job here in Vacaville. It was a very good paying job to take the job with the Transportation Authority because they paid so much money. And another one was a retired friend of mine from the city of Vacaville who said, you ought to see the cushy deal I got. And this lady works part-time for the Solano Transportation Authority. I'm of a mind now to say, we're in a depression. How many more bureaucratic jobs can we afford to maintain? You have to convince me that the Solano Transportation Authority is not another level of bureaucracy that we could well learn to live without. We need to start learning to live within our means. And it's a multi-million-dollar budget. I'm not absolutely saying I'm right, but I will look into it. And I'm here to tell you that that's one of those cushy bureaucratic jobs that my friends have jobs in that I'd be willing to look at as, is it absolutely essential? Is it more essential than having money to treat our sick and our infirm, like the people that came before the board a month ago in wheelchairs and said, please don't cut our $10 or $11.50 jobs? And Mr. Regan, who's in the back of the room, after they pleaded for them not to cut their jobs, which is $11.50 an hour for people, older people that are in wheelchairs that don't want to leave their homes, they don't want to be put in an institution. And he said, and I will quote, listen, you folks, I can really feel for you, but you've got to have a reality check here. We're short of money, and we may have to cut across the board and may have to cut you folks in the wheelchairs. That's a bad priority. I think the STA ought to go before the people in wheelchairs funding.
Thank you. Mr. Pippo, what are your thoughts about increasing or decreasing the number of supervisors on the Solano County Supervisors Board, and why?
Okay, this will be off the top of my head because I've never thought about it. So to increase it to 7, no, because you're just adding another $247,000 a year physicians. That's not the way we need to go now. We can't afford that. To cut it to 3, I think what is more important than cutting it to 3 There's 33,000 or so people in each of the 5 districts now. I can tell you it takes a lot of effort to cover all of that district. I'm attempting to do so. To decrease that to 3, I think would be a little bit hard to handle and a little bit geographically impractical, because we do have a geographical difference between Vallejo and Benicia, the ag area east of us here, and the hilly area and the more populous areas. I think what needs to be done is we need to take a good hard look at redistricting the districts, because Fairfield is cut into about maybe there's a piece of every supervisorial district cut out of Fairfield. They look like a jigsaw puzzle. It's awful. And it was done in the old days to prevent people from running for office. We need to take a hard look. Fairfield needs to have a primary supervisor like Vallejo does, like Rio Vista and Dixon does. I know there's going to be some areas that you're going to have to give and take. Fairfield deserves 1 primary representative, not 4. That should be done.
Thank you, Mr. Pippo. Mr. Vasquez, what are your thoughts about increasing or decreasing the number of supervisors on the Solano County Supervisory Board, and why?
Well, early on, when the county was first formed, it was 3 trustees. I don't know where in state statute it changed to 5. There are a few counties that have, I think, 7. I think it's LA County, if I'm not for sure. But 7 members is too big. 5 is just the right size. And if you look at our population of 420,000 people, we represent about 85,000 individuals. And it really, the redistricting is based on population. So, yeah, it would be nice to have 1 supervisor for every city, but that's virtually impossible. But it's also nice to have 2 supervisors that represent your community. That's the benefit of sometimes having 2 in one community.